Their warships burned the moon to cinders, yet she never flinched. The silence in Sector 9A stretched like a funeral dirge, not because there was nothing left, but because even the echoes had been erased. The scorched remains of Earth's outer colonies drifted like bone fragments in orbit, dozens of once proud habitats obliterated. The stars themselves looked ashamed, dimmed by the gravity of loss. Ava Roslin stood alone at the observation deck of Bastion Red, a half-buried human outpost carved into the crust of a dying asteroid. The remnants of humanity's Third Fleet flickered its static-riddled displays behind her, nothing more than crippled holes and unsent messages. She pressed her fingers against the glass, watching the endless dark, her jaw set like steel. She didn't cry. That was for before. Now, there was only memory and resolve. She was all that was left. At least, that's what the Empire believed. Ava had been born aboard the Orion Spear, a long-range dreadnought now lost in the Empire's first orbital strike. She'd been 6 years old when the treaties broke, 10 when the bombing of Titan erased 2 million souls in an instant, and 20 when she led the last successful counter-raid into the underbelly of the Xerian Empire, an empire that controlled 3,000 star systems and feared nothing except whispers. Whispers of a human ghost still fighting after the fleets were shattered, of a commander with no rank, no world, and no backup, still bleeding the enemy. Ava Roslin. To the Empire, she was a terrorist. To the last hidden fragments of Earthkin, she was a legend. Now, only 37 soldiers remained with her on Bastion Red. Most were wounded, all were tired. They scavenged fuel from wrecks, mined oxygen from ice pockets, and cannibalized their own weapons for food processors. Ava's second in command, Rourke, battle-scarred and half-mechanical, stepped into the room with a grim face. Intercepted a transmission, he muttered, sliding a rusted datapad toward her. The Empire's prepping for a full sector purge, 15 dread carriers, 60 Annihilation-class warships, all of it coming here. She didn't move. They think we're the last ones. They do, he said, and they're bringing enough firepower to crack a planet. Ava stared at the void beyond the glass, then turned. Good, then they'll all be in one place. He blinked. Commander, we don't have time to fear them, Rourke, she said quietly. We have time to finish them. She left the room without another word. 3 levels below, in the buried data core vault, something stirred. A blinking consoled the oldest in the outpost. Human hands hadn't touched it in years. Its display flickered to life. Encrypted codes unraveled, triggered by Ava's biometric signature. She didn't notice. Not yet. Behind thick walls of alloy and ice, a sleeping system began to wake. One last inheritance from old Earth, sealed and forgotten. At night, Ava wandered alone through the armory tunnels. Her fingertips brushed old helmets and carbon-blasted suits' names, etched into chest plates. Her squad, her mentors, her family. Dead, or worse. She found herself staring at the wall mural scratched there by some unknown soldier long ago. A single line, scrawled in black soot. If we are all that's left, let them fear us as if we were all that ever lived. She whispered it like a prayer. Then the sirens began. Red lights spiraled down the corridor. Rourke's voice roared over the comms. Commander, get to ops. You need to see this. Ava sprinted through the narrow corridors. The war paint on her uniform was flaking, and her legs burned, but the fire in her chest blazed brighter. When she arrived in ops, her crew was frozen, staring at a display none of them had seen before. A fleet. Not the Empire's, not theirs. Human, but impossible. Rows upon rows of silent, titanic vessels drifting out of cloak across the asteroid field, each one bigger than the last. Engines cold, weapons locked, no IFF signals, no communications. Where the hell did they come from? Rourke whispered. Ava stepped forward, the hair on her arms rising. That's not a fleet, she said softly. That's the graveyard. Her eyes flicked across the hull markings. Project Goliath Earth Defense. Vol 5 Lazarus warship class long abandoned. Hidden, forgotten even by their creators. Or maybe waiting. Behind her, the console flickered again. Welcome back, Commander Ava Roslin. Activation Protocol Zeta-1 engaged. She turned slowly as the floor beneath her began to hum. Lights surged across the base, and a voice, decades old, boomed through. The station, Command Authority verified. Earth's last armory unlocked. Prepare for resurrection. Ava didn't breathe. No one spoke. In the void, the Empire's fleet kept moving, unaware. unaware that what they were about to fight wasn't even close to humanity's full army. Asterisk. They believe we are broken, that this is the last of us. They will learn their mistake in blood. The ancient warships drifted silently in the shadows of Bastion Red's asteroid field, colossal and imposing as relics from a forgotten era. Ava Roslin stood at the command console, her eyes scanning the interface as the old systems hummed to life with a low mechanical sigh, awakening from decades of stasis. Outside, the void held its breath, the Lazarus fleet, hidden away in secret, vaults deep beneath Earth's crust. This fleet was humanity's last, desperate gamble. Dozens, no, hundreds of warships designed when humanity still dreamed of defending Earth against the unknown. Each vessel a titan, armed with weapons and technologies lost to time. But as Ava observed the long-dormant power grids flickering on, a cold knot of dread settled in her gut. If the Empire knew about these ships, this entire operation was a tomb. In the cramped briefing room, shadows danced on the walls from flickering hull screens. Rourke and the remaining soldiers huddled around, tense and wary. Even after years of fighting, the sight of these giant warships triggered a mixture of awe and despair. "How many do we have?" demanded Kessin, their sharp-eyed tactical officer. Voice rough like gravel. Ava hesitated. "All told, 326, but not all are combat-ready. The systems are ancient, many need repair, and some might never wake." A heavy silence followed. "Even if only half come online," Rourke said quietly, "it's more firepower than the Empire has seen from us in a century." Ava clenched her fists, enough to remind them humanity doesn't break so easily. But then the transmission started, low-frequency signals, encrypted in archaic Earth codes, suddenly flickered onto the comms. Static buzzed, then voices, ghosts from the past. One message repeated endlessly: Jarian fleet's en route. Estimated time to impact, 72 hours. Containment protocol failure. Imminent. Containment protocol. The phrase made Ava's blood run cold. This was no random strike. It was an annihilation. The Empire's claw tightened. The Jarians weren't just coming for a war, they were coming to finish humanity off. Once and for all. Ava retreated to her private quarters, the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a stone slab. She stared at an old holophoto of her parents, both lost during the siege of Titan. She traced a finger over their smiling faces, burning with memories she wished she could forget, but never could. If they could see me now. The scars on her body, the emptiness in her heart, the city-sized ghosts of destroyed worlds all burned a message in her mind. "We survived because we remember." A knock at the door startled her. "Commander," came Alarakan, the station's lead engineer, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. "We have a problem." Ava followed her down the narrow metal corridors to the shipyards, where hulking Lazarus vessels were beginning to stir. Steam hissed, power conduits sparked, and automated drones hovered like metallic swarms, repairing and rebooting systems. But not all was well. The Empire's spies got lucky, Alara said grimly. One of the docking bays was sabotaged, a virus deep inside the ship's core software. "It's spreading fast." Ava's breath caught. "Can you stop it?" Alara shook her head. "Not without risking the entire system shutting down. If it reaches the command core, the whole fleet could shut off, or worse, turn against us." The realization hit like a thunderclap. Betrayal. Inside their own walls, someone had opened the door for the Empire. Ava slammed her fist against the metal railing. "Find whoever did this. We cannot afford weakness." Rourke's voice cut through the comms. "I'm tracing the signal. It's local. One of us." The room grew colder. Who would betray humanity when the fight was at its darkest hour? As the hours crawled forward, Ava retreated again into her memories, the faces of friends lost in battle, the haunting silence of dying worlds, the cries of children who never knew peace. A flashback seized her. She was 16, on the bridge of the Orion Spear, the dreadnought that had once been humanity's pride. The enemy fleet loomed outside, vast and merciless. Her father, Commander Harlan, stood beside her. "You must be stubborn, Ava," he said softly. "Stubborn enough to fight when everyone else has given up. That's what makes us human." She had promised herself then, no matter what came, no matter how dark the galaxy became, she would carry that stubborn light inside her. Suddenly, the base shuddered violently. Red alarms screamed as the Empire's fleet decloaked. Massive warships pouring into Bastion Red's system like a star storm. "Enemy contact," shouted Kess, and Ava gripped the console. This is it. Brace for impact. In the viewing bay, the stars ignited with fire. The Empire's fleet unleashed hell-energy beams tore through asteroid defenses. Missiles streaked through the void, and distant explosions shook the station to its core. But the Lazarus ships held steady, their engines thrumming to life. Then came the final blow. A massive boarding pod slammed into Bastion Red's hull. Explosions rocked the base. Fires erupted. Rourke shouted, "They're inside, enemy boarding parties." Amid the chaos, Ava's voice rose, clear and unwavering. "We fight for every breath, every heartbeat. We are the last flame of a dying world, and we will burn the darkness away." Her words echoed through the halls as soldiers grabbed their weapons, rushing to repel the invaders. But inside her heart, a shadow not if the enemy could breach their defenses here. With the Lazarus fleet dormant, what hope did humanity have beyond this battered asteroid? And worse still, who among them had betrayed their trust? As Bastion Red trembled under the Empire's assault, Ava knew one thing with brutal certainty: the fight was far from over. This was no longer just survival. It was a reckoning. In the darkest hour, the smallest flame could set the stars ablaze. The acrid smell of scorched metal and burnt circuitry lingered in the air, as the last of the Empire's boarding parties fell under Ava's squad's relentless fire. Bastion Red had become a crucible, a fortress forged from desperation and defiance. Yet beneath the smoke and flashing alarms, a fragile hope kindled. Ava's voice cut through the chaos, steady and commanding. "Secure the docking bays. We cannot afford another breach." Rourke nodded grimly, rallying the weary soldiers. Despite their exhaustion, they fought with a ferocity born of knowing they were humanity's final shield. Every breath stolen from the enemy was a victory. In the dim glow of the command center, Ava's eyes locked on the dormant Lazarus ships. She traced the ancient markings with reverence. Earth Defense Vault 5. These vessels were more than machines. They were the legacy of countless souls who had refused to surrender. Elara Ken, fingers flying over a console, reported urgently, "I've managed to isolate the virus. It's embedded deep, but we can purge it if we initiate a full system reboot. We'll lose propulsion during the process." Ava weighed the cost. "We don't have time for half measures. We either wake the fleet whole or die trying." Elara swallowed hard. "It's a gamble, but it's the only one we have." Meanwhile, deep in the data vault, Ava uncovered a hidden file encrypted with layers of archaic code. The message, when decrypted, bore the signature of Dr. Milovas, the brilliant mind behind Project Goliath. Long presumed dead, the recording crackled to life, her voice resolute and haunting. "If you're hearing this, it means we have failed to stop the Empire's advance. But know this: within the Lazarus fleet lies the seed. A weapon, yes, but more than that, a spark of humanity's resilience. It will awaken the forgotten might of our race. Use it wisely. Use it to remind the galaxy who we are." Ava's heart raced. The seed, whatever it was their last hope. A secret too dangerous to be lost. Suddenly, a transmission from an unexpected source blinked onto the comms code. Not human, but not Empire either. An alien dialect, fragmented yet intelligible. "To the remnant of humanity, we know your pain. We are the Zayri, once enemies of the Empire. We offer alliance." The room fell silent. Rourke frowned. "An alliance? After all this time?" Ava met the message with cautious resolve. "If even one hand reaches for us in this darkness, we'll take it." The Zayri emissary appeared on the holo-slender. Elongated features, eyes like liquid obsidian. "Your defiance is known throughout the sector. The Empire fears your resurgence," the Zayri said. "We just suffered under their yoke. Together, we can shatter their chains." For the first time in years, Ava allowed herself a glimmer of hope. The fight was no longer theirs alone, but as preparations began, a shadow lurked within Bastion Red's walls. Rourke's investigations uncovered a chilling truth. One of their own was feeding data to the Empire, a whisper of betrayal, a traitor whose actions had sabotaged the Lazarus fleet and invited the boarding attack. Ava confronted the suspected young pilot named Yelena, a man she had once saved from death. His eyes burned with guilt and fear. "Why?" she demanded. Jelen's voice trembled. I did what I thought was right. The Empire offered peace. I wanted to spare us all more blood." Ava's gaze hardened. "Peace built on chains is still slavery. You chose the enemy over your own." The betrayal struck a deep wound, but Ava's resolve only strengthened. She gathered the remaining forces. "Today, we ignite the first spark of resistance. We are not just survivors. We are the storm the Empire forgot to fear. With the Lazarus fleet humming to life behind her, the outpost began its transformation from desperate refuge to beacon of rebellion. Outside, the stars watched silently as Bastion Red's engines roared. The first Lazarus warship, the Valiant Dawn, broke its centuries of silence. Its massive silhouette blotted out distant suns, weapons gleaming with ancient promise. The Empire's dread carriers were no longer the hunters, they were the hunted. Ava stood on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, eyes blazing with determination. This is not just a battle for survival, she declared. It is a reckoning. The galaxy will remember the day humanity rose again. The crew cheered, their spirits rekindled by the spark Ava had ignited. As the Lazarus fleet moved out of hiding, the void itself seemed to tremble. For the Empire, the nightmare was only beginning. When the storm comes, it tears everything apart, and we must choose what we are willing to lose. The Lazarus fleet surged out of the asteroid's shadow, their colossal hulls gleaming faintly against the void. The silence that had once cloaked them was shattered by the roaring engines and the crackle of weapon systems awakening after centuries of dormancy. Ava stood on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, gripping the railing as the fleet assumed formation. She saw the flickering faces of her crew, some still haunted by the losses they had suffered, others driven by the fierce fire of vengeance. Yet beneath the unity was a fragile tension, the scars of betrayal still raw. The Empire's response was immediate and brutal. A colossal battlecruiser, the Zenith's Wrath, emerged from hyperspace, a behemoth clad in obsidian armor and bristling with plasma turrets. Its arrival tore through the outer defenses of Bastion Red's system like a blade through silk. Enemy flagship detected, Kessin announced grimly. They're coming straight for us. Ava nodded. All ships, prepare to engage. No mercy. As the Lazarus vessels thundered forward, energy beams and missiles streaked across the void. Explosions blossomed in starbursts of fire and metal, wreckage drifting like fallen angels in the abyss. But the Empire's forces adapted swiftly. Their AI-driven drones swarmed with terrifying efficiency, piercing shields and sabotaging systems. Amid the chaos, tragedy struck. The Valiant Dawn shuddered violently, its left engine critically damaged by a plasma salvo. Fires erupted in the engineering deck. Damage report, Ava barked. Alara's voice crackled through the calm, strained but steady. We're losing power in critical sectors. Repairs underway. But it's going to take time. Rourke's face appeared beside Ava's. Enemy boarding parties again. They're using advanced infiltration tech. This isn't just a fight in space, it's inside us. Ava's jaw clenched. The Empire's strike was no longer a war of attrition, it was a war of annihilation. Back on Bastion Red, the betrayal deepened. Jalen's confession had shaken the fragile trust within the ranks, but the revelation was just the tip of the iceberg. Intelligence decrypted from captured Imperial communications revealed a more insidious plot. A mole network embedded within every major human outpost. Everywhere we look, there's a knife in our back, Ava muttered, pacing the command center. We can't fight shadows, but we also can't ignore them. Rourke's tone was grim. Trust is the first casualty of war. We'll have to watch each other's backs more closely than ever. The weight of leadership pressed down like a tidal wave. In a rare quiet moment, Ava found herself staring into the void. Memories clawing at her mind. She saw the faces of her lost family, the countless innocents crushed beneath the Empire's iron boot. She felt the sting of each betrayal, the heartbreak of each defeat. But within that sorrow burned a fire. She would not let humanity's flame be extinguished. The Empire's retaliation intensified. The Zenith's Wrath unleashed a devastating iron barrage, disabling communications across the fleet. The Lazarus ships faltered, their ancient systems groaning under the assault. Ava knew the only way forward was a desperate gamble. We can't outgun them, but maybe we can outthink them. Alara stepped forward. There's one option left, Project Seed. It's unstable, experimental tech designed for planetary defense. It could turn the tide, but the risks, Ava's eyes locked with Alara's. Sometimes, risks are the only option. Meanwhile, whispers of mutiny began to stir among the exhausted crews. Fear gnawed at the edges of loyalty. Are we fighting to live, or just waiting to die? One soldier asked bitterly. Ava addressed them directly in a broadcast. We are not just fighting for survival. We are fighting to reclaim our dignity, our history, and our future. The Empire wants us broken, but we are more than their targets. We are humanity, stubborn, fierce, and unyielding. Her words cut through the despair like a beacon. But even as the fleet prepared to activate Project Seed, The Empire struck its cruelest blow yet. Bastion Red's power grids flickered violently. Before plunging the entire base into darkness, a massive sabotage. The station's life support systems failed, oxygen levels plummeting. Panic flared in the dim red emergency lights. Ava rallied her remaining forces. We fight in the dark if we must. We fight because we have no other choice. The crew moved swiftly, battling fires and restoring critical systems. But in the shadows, an explosion tore through the lower decks. Rourke fell, shielding the squad from the blast. Ava held him in her arms as his life faded. "Tell them," he whispered. "Tell them, humanity fights." Tears burned her eyes. But she did not break. With her second-in-command gone, Ava's resolve hardened like tempered steel. She stood on the bridge, looking out into the stars stained red with war. "We will rise from this," she vowed, "no matter the cost." The galaxy held its breath, because the storm was far from over. In the abyss of despair, a single spark can ignite a revolution. The silence that followed Rourke's fall was heavier than any battle cry. Bastion Red trembled beneath the relentless barrage of the Empire's wrath, but within its battered walls, Ava Rosalind felt the fire flare wild, unyielding, and fierce. She stood alone in the command chamber, eyes locked on the ancient control panel that now pulsed with the activation code for Project Seed, the last desperate weapon buried deep within the Lazarus Fleet's vault. "Are you certain?" Alara Ken asked, her voice taut with exhaustion and hope. Ava's gaze didn't waver. "There is no certainty in war, only resolve." The seed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. It was a technological marvel, conceived when humanity still believed in miracles and artificial intelligence designed not for destruction, but for rebirth. Deep within the core of the Valiant Dawn, Ava initiated the sequence. The ship shuddered as dormant systems whirred to life, and a cold, mechanical voice filled the chamber. "Project Seed online, initiating planetary defense protocols." Suddenly, the asteroid beneath Bastion Red pulsed with energy. The walls glowed with an otherworldly light as ancient tech surged through forgotten conduits. But the Empire was watching. On board the Zenith's Wrath, Supreme Commander Kellis snarled, furious at the unexpected resurgence of human power. "They have awakened the seed," he hissed. "Destroy that base before it becomes a beacon for rebellion." His fingers danced across the command console. "Prepare the obliterator strike. Leave nothing alive." Back on Bastion Red, Ava rallied her remaining soldiers, their faces pale but fierce. "We are not just fighting for today. We fight for tomorrow." For every soul the Empire tried to silence, her words ignited a surge of unity. Even Yelen, the traitor, now repentant and desperate for redemption, stood beside her. As the obliterator strike approached, the seed activated its defense grid, shielding the asteroid in an iridescent barrier of energy. The base absorbed the first wave of destruction. The assault tore at the shield, but the seed held firm, redirecting power to weakened systems and repairing critical damage. Alara's voice cracked through the comms. "It's working. The seed isn't just defending, it's adapting." Ava smiled grimly, its humanity's stubbornness given form. But there was a cost. The seed's awakening stirred something old, buried deep beneath the asteroids. Core and ancient signal, a beacon reaching across the stars, a signal the Empire could not ignore. On board the Zenith's Wrath, Kellis' expression twisted with dread as new fleets decloaked on his sensors known ships, far larger and more advanced than any he had ever seen. Reinforcements? No, it can't be. He muttered. The new fleet was human, but unlike any Eva had ever seen. Colossal ships, forged in secret shipyards hidden beyond the known galaxy. Their hulls were layered with reflective alloys and shimmering with an ethereal blue glow. The forgotten armada lost to history, now returning to reclaim their legacy. Ava's heart thundered. The Empire had assumed she was the last spark. They had not counted on the firestorm that was rising with the forgotten armada's arrival. The tide shifted. The Empire's forces faltered under the combined assault, their dread carriers overwhelmed. By coordinated strikes, Ava took command of the Lazarus Fleet's flagship, leading a daring assault on the Zenith's Wrath. The battle was fierce. Brutal laser fire danced like deadly lightning, and explosions shattered the silence of space. Amid the chaos, Ava confronted Kellis in a desperate boarding engagement aboard the enemy flagship. Their clash was not just of weapons, but wills. "Your stubbornness will be your doom," Kellis spat. Ava's voice was ice. "Your arrogance will be your downfall." With a final, defiant strike, Ava's blade found its mark. Kellis fell, and with his death, the Empire's grip loosened. But Eva knew the war was far from over. The seed hung beneath her feet, a living monument to humanity's resilience, and beyond the stars, the forgotten armada waited, ready to ignite a revolution. Asterisk tonight. The stars witnessed a reckoning they never saw coming. The Lazarus fleet hummed with renewed vigor, its engines thrumming in perfect unison as Bastion Red emerged from the shadows to face the Empire's might. Eva Rosalind stood on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, the weight of command heavy but steady. On her shoulders, the forgotten armada loomed beyond the veil of space, a tidal wave of shimmering warships poised to break the Empire's grip once and for all. But before the dawn of victory, darkness gathered. The Empire's remnants retreated to the system's dark side, where they activated an ancient weapon one, whispered of in legends but never believed real, the Oblivion Star, a planet-sized device of destruction, designed to consume entire star systems in a pulse of annihilation. Eva, Elara's voice trembled over the comms. They're powering the Oblivion Star. If it fires, Bastion Red and the entire fleet will be erased. The enormity of the threat was staggering. It wasn't just a battle anymore, it was extinction. Ava's gaze hardened. Then we stop it, no matter the cost. Plans were made swiftly. The Lazarus fleet would shield Bastion Red and the Seed, while the strike team led by Eva herself would infiltrate the Zenith's Wrath, now a battered flagship but still housing the controls for the Oblivion Star. The hours before the assault were heavy with silence. Eva walked alone on the observation deck, staring into the void where countless stars flickered, indifferent. She thought of Rourke, of every soldier lost, and of the countless generations who dreamed of freedom. Her voice broke the silence. This ends tonight. The boarding party, assembled soldiers hardened by war, engineers desperate to survive, and Yelen, the man seeking redemption. The assault pods tore through the vacuum, crashing onto the Zenith's Wrath's hull. Explosions tore the dark as they breached, fighting through corridors slick with blood and fire. Inside, Eva's team battled fiercely. Every step forward met with resistance. The weight of despair threatened to suffocate them, but Eva's unyielding spirit became a beacon. They reached the control chamber, the heart of the Oblivion Star. Kellis was gone, but his loyalists remained, desperate and deadly. Eva faced them with calm fury. We are the storm you never expected. Meanwhile, outside, the Lazarus fleet held the line, shields buckling but never breaking. The Seed's energy flared, repairing damage and pushing back the Empire's attacks. The forgotten armada advanced, engines blazing, ready to strike. Back, inside the control room, Eva's team fought desperately to disable the weapon. Elara's voice crackled through the comms, guiding them remotely. Override protocols in progress, but the system's core is rigged to detonate if tampered with. Eva's heart pounded. One wrong move meant annihilation. Time ran out. The countdown on the Oblivion Star's console ticked relentlessly toward zero. Eva's fingers flew over the controls, bypassing security layers with precision and grit. With a final surge, the weapons systems shut down, the countdown halting just seconds from oblivion. Eva exhaled, a flood of relief washing over her. But victory was bitter. The battle was not over. As alarms blared, the Zenith's Wrath began to collapse, its core destabilizing. Eva grabbed her team. Evacuate now. This ship will not survive. They raced through collapsing corridors, debris raining like deadly hail. In the final moments before escape pods launched, Eva paused, looking back at the dying ship. She whispered a vow to the ghosts lost to war. We fight on. For you, for all of us. Outside, the Lazarus fleet and forgotten armada converged, an unstoppable force ready to shatter the Empire's chains forever. The night was dark, but a new dawn was coming. They thought us defeated forgotten relics. They were wrong. The void ignited in a cataclysm of fire and fury as the Lazarus fleet and the forgotten armada launched their final assault against the Imperial remnants. Eva Rosalind stood on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, her eyes blazing with the unyielding spirit that had carried humanity through its darkest hours. All around her, Titanic warships moved as one, a symphony of destruction and defiance, their weapons screaming death. At the once invincible Empire, the Imperial dread carriers, star-sized and cold, unleashed torrents of plasma and antimatter. Entire squadrons vaporized in an instant, yet the human fleets pressed forward, relentless as a tidal wave. Eva's voice cut through the chaos, steady and commanding. Hold the line. For Earth, for the fallen, for the future. On the front lines, Human pilots and battered fighters danced through lethal fire, weaving between explosions and debris. The air was electric with courage and desperation. Among them, Yelen, the former traitor now redeemed, flew with reckless abandon, shielding wounded comrades with his ship. Within the Zenith's Wrath wreckage, Ava led the boarding party through the smoking corridors, securing vital control nodes to prevent any resurgence of Imperial power. Her heart ached with every step. This battlefield bore the scars of lives lost and betrayals endured. Yet she fought not just for revenge, but for the right to dream of peace. Suddenly, a massive Imperial supercarrier decloaked the dread sovereign, an ancient behemoth wielding weapons that could fracture moons. Its presence was a harbinger of doom. Ava's squad scrambled to intercept. The battle turned desperate. Laser fire pierced the darkness. Explosions rocked the hull. Amid the fury, Ava confronted the carrier's captain, a towering figure in black armor, his helmet emblazoned with the Empire's sigil. Their duel was brutal and swift, blades clashing with sparks flying. "You cannot win," the captain hissed. "We don't need to," Ava replied, voice steel. "We only need to endure." With a fierce strike, she disarmed him, leaving him defeated. Back in space, the Lazarus fleet unleashed the full fury of Project Seed. Wave after wave of adaptive energy pulses tore through Imperial shields, crippling their vessels and turning their own weapons against them. The Empire's dread carriers faltered, systems failing, crews abandoning ship. Ava's voice echoed across the comms. "Today, the galaxy witnesses what it means to be human." Her words ignited a rallying cry, spreading like wildfire through the combined fleets. The battle's tide turned irreversibly. Imperial warships exploded in cascades of fire. Their command fractured. In the end, the survivors fled, their empire shattered. As the stars settled, Ava stood on the bridge, breathing heavy but victorious. Her eyes scanned the horizon. The cost had been terrible, but the price of freedom was never light. She turned to her crew. "We were broken, but we were never beaten." Asterisk, they thought they had extinguished us. Instead, they ignited a star that will burn for eternity. The war was over. The silence that followed was unlike any Ava Roslin had ever known. Not the silence of defeat, nor the oppressive hush of despair, but a quiet so profound and hummed with possibility. The ruins of the Imperial remnants lay scattered across the void, shattered vessels drifting like tombstones among the stars. The Lazarus fleet, battered but unbroken, hovered as sentinels, guardians of a fragile peace forged in fire and sacrifice. Ava stood on the bridge of the valiant dawn, gazing out over the endless black. The stars were different now, brighter, freer. They no longer bore witness to humanity's extinction, but to its renaissance. Around her, the crew moved with the weary grace of survivors who had fought beyond their limits, faces marked by grief, scars etched in flesh and memory, yet eyes burning with the stubborn light of hope. Among them, Yelen, once a betrayer, now a hero, worked quietly, his penance ongoing but his spirit unbroken. Alara Ken, tirelessly tending to the fragile systems of the Lazarus fleet, offered Ava a rare smile. "We've done what we thought impossible." Ava nodded, voice steady but soft. "We did what was necessary." The seed, the ancient AI that had once seemed a gamble too risky, now pulsed gently beneath the hull, a living testament to humanity's enduring spirit. It had not just saved them, it had transformed them, melding human ingenuity with the echoes of a lost Earth. But the victory was bittersweet. Memories haunted Ava, the faces of comrades lost, the cries of children who would never know peace, the cost of every hard-fought inch. She walked the decks alone, past silent memorials etched with names of brave souls who had given everything. Her fingers brushed the worn steel plaque bearing the words, "We were broken, but we were never beaten." As the Lazarus fleet set course for the reborn human colonies hidden beyond the outer rim, Ava gathered her commanders. "The galaxy will never forget this day," she said. "We have shattered the Empire's chains, but freedom is more than a battle won." She looked each of them in the eye. "We must rebuild, not just our worlds, but our honor, our unity." In the months that followed, the Forgotten Armada and the Lazarus fleet became a new force, a coalition of survivors and rebels bound by shared history and unyielding resolve. Together, they reclaimed lost worlds, restored shattered civilizations, and defended the weak against lingering threats. The Empire, fractured and humbled, retreated into the shadows, nursing its wounds and reevaluating the price of tyranny. The galaxy had changed. On a quiet night, beneath the twinkling stars of a recovered Earth-like moon, Ava stood alone once more. The wind-carried sense of growing forests and new beginnings. She closed her eyes, whispering a vow to the past and the future. Now, the stars carry our name. The galaxy had learned what it meant to be human, stubborn, fierce, and unbroken. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon was never its ships or its technology. It was its will to survive, to fight, and to hope. The end.